An introduction to the letter of James. There is strong evidence that the James who wrote this inspired letter was Jesus' half-brother. James wrote the letter before 62 CE. He was living in Jerusalem at the time. The letter stresses the need to display faith and endurance amid trials, to avoid sins that lead to divine disapproval, and to prove our faith by our works. Like Jesus, James used many simple yet powerful illustrations drawn from common things: waves of the sea, flowers and trees, a man looking at himself in a mirror, and material riches that perish. The letter of James has 5 chapters. Chapter 1 reminds us to keep asking God for wisdom, doing so in faith, and that the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven by the wind and blown about. Chapter 2 contains strong counsel for those favoring the wealthy over the poor, thus creating class distinctions and violating the royal law of neighborly love. Did you know? James often alludes to the Sermon on the Mount. For example, he says that we can have joy when persecuted. We must do the will of God, not simply hear it. And if we want God to forgive us, we must forgive others. In chapter 3, James uses a variety of comparisons to illustrate our need to control our tongue. Especially is this true of teachers of God's Word. James compares the tongue to such things as the bridle of a horse, the rudder of a ship, a fire, and a spring of water. Chapter 4 explains that wicked conduct has its roots in fleshly desires. James also states, "Whoever wants to be a friend of the world is making himself an enemy of God." On the other hand, when we oppose the devil and draw close to God, he will draw close to us. Chapter 5 tells us that the rich and powerful who oppress others will have to answer to Jehovah. James also highlights the importance of patience. Just as a farmer patiently waits for rain, we must patiently wait for God to fulfill His promises in connection with Christ. In the meantime, anyone who becomes spiritually sick should seek help from the congregation elders. The elders' loving use of God's Word and their prayers of faith can help a sick one to become well. As you read the letter of James, note how we should never blame Jehovah for our trials, how we should take great care to control our tongue, and how we should be patient as we await God's kingdom.